Good afternoon. My name is Janet Justice, and I work in the Education and Events Department here at FTD. I want to welcome you to our webinar titled Market Your Brand, Grow Your Business. Today, you will learn the importance of branding your business and yourself, as well as some ways to do it. FTD Education Consultant Randy Wooten, AIFD, will be leading this informative webinar. With nearly a decade of experience in the floral industry, Randy is the fourth-generation owner and lead designer at Dolores' Florist in Douglas, Georgia. Randy has received multiple awards throughout his career, including the 2012 Retailer of the Year Award. As president of the Georgia State Florists Association, his passion for the floral industry is deeply rooted in education. Once Randy is finished with his presentation, we will open the webinar up for questions. If you have a question, simply type it in the question box on the upper right side of your screen. We will take the questions in the order they are received. Please feel free to submit your questions during the presentation. We will hold them until the Q&A portion of the webinar. So without further ado, I would like to turn the call over to Randy to begin the webinar. Randy?
Thank you, Janet. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to start by saying thank you to FTD for this opportunity to share with you today one of my passions, marketing and branding. And I'd also like to thank each of you for logging on and joining us today. By doing so, this shows your support of education as well as your commitment to the success of your business as well as your industry. So you're to be commended for that. And I do encourage you that whenever you have the opportunity to take part in an educational program, webinar, seminar, whatever, I do encourage you to do so. I do believe that education is the key to our survival. And FTD has an awesome resource available to us online through the FTD University, so I encourage you to check it out. Before we get started, I'd like to give you a little backstory on me and where I come from. 10 years ago, I purchased my grandmother's shop. And prior to that, I had not been directly involved in the industry. However, I had worked for a communications company as a retail director of operations, and I was able to bring my marketing experience on board. But I began to think about, when I purchased the shop, what could I do to set myself apart? And that's where some of this information we're going to cover today comes into to play. And I'm going to share with you some of the research that I found and I implemented into my business, and share with you some of the ideas that worked for me. And I will say up front, and I'll be honest, I do not profess or proclaim to be the authority on this subject. However, there have been some things that have proved very beneficial to me and my business, so I hope this works for you as well. We're going to start, when talking about marketing, we have to first know the definitions of what we're talking about, and that's with anything. And I know that may sound elementary, however, I do believe it is the foundation in which we're going to start with today. And the definition of a brand, Webster tells us that it could be a particular kind, a name given to a product, service, or even a person, a permanent impression on a distinctive category. And there are several examples of branding in our society today. And one of those is like the logo you see at the corner of this slide, the FTD Mercury Man. FTD has done an amazing job with their brand.
Randy, we're not seeing, we're still on your, Randy, we're still on your slide there. We're on the example of a brand. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. You can see the FTD Mercury Man in the corner. That logo is one of the most recognized logos in the world. When people see that Mercury Man carrying flowers, they automatically think of sending flowers and sending the best. If you look on the slide, when you see that bottle, the shape or the silhouette of that bottle, we often think of Coca-Cola. And this is a wonderful example of how images define a brand. And what's even more effective is when a company and their brand takes on and defines a category. For example, Coca-Cola. How many times do we drive up to a fast food restaurant and we'll say, I'll take a large Coke with that? And they come back over the speaker and say, I'm sorry, will Pepsi work? And you mean, okay, that's fine. I just meant I wanted a large cola. The word Coke and Coca-Cola defines that category of soft drink. And another example that's in our own industry is floral foam. How many of us refer to floral foam as Oasis? Around the shop, I've often heard my grandmother say, we need to soak some Oasis. The term Oasis is a brand, and that brand defines that whole category of products. Actually, you may be using another company's brand or another name, but you refer to that product as Oasis. And what those companies have done is they have had an effective marketing strategy of branding their product. And the definition of branding is the marketing practice of creating a name, a symbol, or design that identifies and differentiates a product from other products. And just like we see the FTD logo here, it stands for quality. It stands for the best, and people recognize that, and when they think of sending flowers, they're going to seek out that logo, and that's just how important branding is in our market. So today we're going to talk about marketing your brand, and we're going to hopefully share some ideas with you that is going to ring true to you and set some things in motion for you and your business. So when we're getting started on learning how to market our brand, there's a few key points that we need to start with to build that foundation to create that brand. We need to know our market. We need to also know that it's more than just a name. And we need to figure out how do we get our brand recognized.
Randy?
Yes.
Randy, we're still on the Coca-Cola slide. It's not moving forward.
It's not. Janet, you may have to take over for me then. I do apologize, folks.
All right, we'll make a quick adjustment here. Let me.
Technical difficulties.
All right. Yep, we're showing my screen now.
You're showing your screen?
Yep,
and
I'm on the marketing your brand.
Okay, slide 7.
All right. There we go. Go ahead. Marketing your brand.
Yes. So those are the 4 key things we're going to discuss today, and I'll recap them for those of you who were not able to see the slide. Know your market. Know that a brand is more than just a name. We've got to get our brand recognized, and there are resources and tools available to us that we need to be aware of to help us maximize that brand. So if you could change slides, please, and we'll go to Know Your Market. That's one of the things that I had to deal with when purchasing the shop, because like I said, I was never directly involved in the industry, so I had no clue about what my market was all about. And 2 things we need to find out and determine when we're talking about knowing your market, and that's understanding the needs of the market and determine who we need to be in that market. And that second one was a big learning experience for me because a lot of it had to do with my mindset of who I wanted to be. And that's okay too, but sometimes who I wanted to be and someone who I needed to be may be 2 different things. So you want to make sure that you're on the same page with your market in regards to what your market is yielding. One of the things that was beneficial to me in determining the needs of my market was my POS system. And if you don't have a POS system, I encourage you to get one. I have the FTD Mercury system. And what made that POS system so valuable to me was the fact that I could go over to a computer with the click of a couple buttons, I had this report, and it was instant. And the report could tell me exactly where my sales were at. And it gave me an opportunity to make changes right then and there and not wait until my accountant was done with my taxes to see where all my sales were at and what was my biggest money maker, if you will. But the one thing I found interesting was that 40% of my annual sales was comprised of sympathy sales. I always knew that sympathy was my bread and butter, but it was just so profound to see that 40% of my annual sales was due to sympathy. And what was even more interesting was the fact that 20% of those 40% was from plant sales, live plant sales. And you may ask me, well, what does that tell you about your market? Well, what that told me was that plants is a huge item in my shop, and that my market demands that, and I need to spend a little more time on fine-tuning my plants so I can market that particular product in my store. And we went out and we started to see how we could make our plants different so that they didn't look like the next. And my POS system aided me in knowing that, and I knew it instantly, and therefore I could change that. If you'll advance, please. So you may be asking yourself, well, Randy, where do we start? I mean, how do I go about finding out what my market is if I don't have a POS system or I'm new to the business? And if you'll advance, please, I've come up with 4 questions that you need to ask yourself that's going to be crucial in helping determine what your market's needs are. 1, what is your company's mission? What is your purpose? Why are you here? Why do we get up and come and unlock that door and turn the lights on each day? For me, at my shop, I had to come to the realization several years ago that, in my opinion, we don't sell flowers anymore. The grocery store sells flowers. The big box store sells flowers. Your competitor down the street sells flowers. What my shop sells is customer service and talent. That's 2 things that they can't get down at the competition or at the box stores. So you need to determine what your mission is and write it down. What are the features and benefits of your products or services? What do you have to offer? Why should those people come and spend money with you? You know, one of the easiest things there is to make sure your product that's going out of your shop is different. If your stuff and your designs looks just like what they can get down the street, and sometimes maybe at a cheaper price, what is the benefit of them coming to you? And you need to determine that. What do your customers and prospects already think of your company? Now, this is a good one. You know, what is the word on the street? I often wondered that myself, because from time to time you would hear little comments here or there and you're wondering, where did that come from? And if you're not sure what the community thinks of your business, go out into some of the community leaders, the movers and the shakers, and ask them, you know, what's the word? What are people talking about when they talk about my shop? I reached out to the president of the local chamber of commerce, and I said, Joanne, when you're out and about and you're talking, what is the word out on the street? And thank the Lord it was all good. But if there are issues out there, people may be talking among themselves and not to you, and so that's a good thing to know. What qualities do you want them to associate with your company? What do you want to be known for? And this reverts back to your mission. I think they go hand in hand. Do you want to be known for someone who takes pride in their work, who's going to take care of them no matter what? What qualities do you want them to associate with your company? And if you'll advance, please, there are several things that will aid us in answering those questions. We need a great logo. Your logo represents you. It should speak volumes of you, and it should have a message. Your business should have a message. And you need to integrate that message into your brand so that your brand will have a voice. Not only on your stationery, on your delivery van moving around town, not only on your signage, but also in your personnel and your staff in the shop. Taglines are wonderful. You need to create one that's going to stick out in people's mind. I have one personally that I use on all my emails, and it says, "Thanks for all you do." My staff in the shop, I have drilled into them that when you're talking on the phone or in person with a customer, at some point in time toward the end of that transaction or that conversation, you should always tell them, "I do appreciate you. I do appreciate your business." We want them to know that we do value them as a customer. And stay true to your logo, your message. Make sure it's consistent. You can't have one thing on the van, one on the shop, and you're talking something else inside the shop to your customers. You have to stay true and consistent. So no matter where the consumer sees you or interacts with you or your staff, that message is still consistent. And all these things will help you answer those questions. So we're going to move on to the next topic. Now that we've kind of got a handle on what our market will yield and who we want to be in that market, there's something we need to understand about branding. Branding is more than the name of your business. There's so many levels to branding, and people get hung up and stuck on their name and their logo, and that's as far as branding goes. But there's several things that are so much more involved in that branding, and one of those is customer service branding. Be consistent with it, be confident, and be dedicated. You heard me say earlier that I don't believe we're selling flowers anymore. I feel we're selling customer service and talent, and you need to brand that customer service. That can be a powerful, powerful brand for you. For example, the big store Walmart. We all know Walmart, and we've all said it before. For whatever reason, whether it doesn't work, it's broken, I don't need it anymore, or I shouldn't have bought that, or I just don't like it, they have a no questions asked return policy. And we often joke and say, well, you bought it at Walmart, take it back. They are known for that customer service. Why can't we? There's many times when customers come in my shop and there may be an issue, or I don't like to call them complaints, I call them feedback, but whatever the issue may be, I tell them up front. I tell them, I'm like, I want to assure you before we go any further, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this right for you. And then I try to address the issue. And at the end of the conversation, I follow up with just what I promised them at the onset of that conversation. I take care of them. And you can't do it for one and not do it for the other. And I know there's times when it comes to customer service that we shouldn't have to be doing some of the things that we have to do. But you know what? We're protecting our brand and we're protecting our name. So customer service branding is very crucial. Another type of branding, another layer, would be your talent. So many times people don't think about this one. They're in such a hurry to get things out the door and they don't think about branding your talent. And to do so, you have to be unique, different. You can't send everything out of your store that looks like the shop down the street or what they can get at the box store. And like I stated earlier, our name and our reputation, we should guard it and protect it. That's all we have in this industry. And by branding your talent, people will start coming to you simply because of your talent. People often say, you know what, Randy? I was at the funeral home the other day and I didn't even have to walk up to the spray. From across the room, I knew it was yours. I can pick your stuff out. That is branding your talent. But you also have to remember you got to be consistent. One of the challenges I faced with that after I purchased my shop was when there were times I had to be out of the shop and my grandmother filled in, or I brought in a freelance designer, I would always get a call and said, "Randy, I hate to complain, but I know you didn't make that arrangement." So I had to think about, what am I going to do? How am I going to protect that brand? And I had to surround myself and hire people who were, their work was consistent with mine, so that I could continue with that branding of our talent. And you want to be professional, and you want to walk, talk, speak, be professional. And the one way we're going to do that is through continuing education. When a customer comes in and we speak professionally, we talk like we know a little bit about what we're doing or about a product, you're establishing that rapport with them, and you're also reinforcing that brand of your talent and your knowledge. Hey, they know what they're talking about. And so branding your talent is just as important as your logo or your name. The third type of branding or layering of branding is personal branding. And the definition of personal branding describes the process by which an individual differentiates themselves to stand out from a crowd. And it also enhances your recognition as an expert and establishes your reputation and credibility. I know we're all caught up in our own little worlds, and we come in and we punch that clock and we go from one task to the next. But when you brand that customer service and you brand your talent, personal branding is going to follow, and we need to be mindful of that. You've probably seen the TV commercial that's all everywhere right now due to tax season, where they have a doctor in a white lab coat out on the street with a jackhammer just chipping away at the asphalt, and the tagline is something like, "You wouldn't want your doctor doing your job." And that's true. I'm a floral designer. I know nothing about contracts, contracting, building. I know nothing of that. So when I have a need for a contractor to build something for me, I'm going to seek out a professional. And in our industry, you need to be that professional in your community. And that's where the personal branding comes. And just like it says, it enhances your recognition as an expert. When I bought the shop, people would say, "Where did that come from?" And they'd say, "Oh, that came from Randy's." "Well, where's Randy's?" "Oh, he's at Dolores's." And in the beginning, I had to do this personal branding because people were seeing my work, and it was not typical work that would come from Dolores's Florist, and they would want to know where it come from. So in my marketing ads, in print, in radio ads, I would have to make that personal branding. Randy is at Dolores's. Put my name in the ad, my picture in my ad. I went as far as even having my picture on my business card. And several people would laugh and say, "Oh, he's conceited. He's got his picture on his business card." But in the beginning, I had to do that to bring that personal branding to that shop. And there's three things that's going to help you with that personal branding. Value proposition. What do you stand for? And this goes back to our mission. Just like you have a mission for your business, you need to have a mission for you as an individual. Are you going to be known as an expert? Are you going to be known for integrity? Someone that's going to take care of that person? Differentiation. What makes you stand out? Customer service, your talent, your designs, your personality. You know, that means a lot, personality, because there's many times I've been in business and I love their product and it's at an affordable price, but their personality just sucked and they didn't make me feel welcome, and so I left. And you know what? Probably not going to be back. So what makes you stand out? Marketability. What makes you compelling? What's the draw? There again, reinforcing customer service and talent. One of the things that's happened to me over the years, I got a phone call one day, and this lady is a prominent lady in town, and she said, "Randy, I know you're not my florist of choice, but," and I'm like, okay, here we go. And she says, "My husband has an idea for a sympathy tribute, and it's going to require someone who's very creative, and you're the most creative person in town. Can you help me?" And initially, the whole time she's talking, I'm thinking, is this woman crazy? She has just insulted me. She has told me that I'm not her florist of choice, but can you help me? And after I got off the phone, and of course I helped her, but you know what? That was the best, one of the best compliments I could have ever gotten. And it just proved to me that all the work that I had done to create that personal brand was paying off. And that's what you want in your community. You want to be known as that creative person, and that's a perfect example of personal branding. So now that we have our branding in place, as far as we have an idea of what we're going to do for our customer service branding, talent, and personal branding, how do we get it recognized? How do we get it out there on the street? How do we put it in place? And someone shared with me one time a saying, and it rang true with me, and I hope it does for you as well. They said it's not the consumer's job to remember you, but it's your job to be remembered. And that's so, so very true. It's not their responsibility that when they need flowers they're going to think of your name, but it's your job to make them remember that. We had a furniture store in town, and this is a prime example of this, and every time you would get in the car or turn the radio on, there would be an ad from Harris Furniture. Phil Harris, the owner, had cut the commercial, and he was just always over the top, you know, high-strung, annoying. The commercial just got on your nerves, and people would complain about it. But you know what? When it came time to make a purchase of a piece of furniture, we would all laugh and joke and say, "Hey, let's go to Harris's Furniture. Let's see what kind of sale Phil's got going on." That put a permanent imprint in my mind from the ad, and he did an effective job of making me remember his business. And there's a couple ways we're going to talk about of how you can get your brand recognized. Some of the ways that's worked for me is to become active in your community. You know, become someone, not only by being active in your community are you going to be mingling with the movers and shakers, people who have money and more likely will spend it than some others, but it labels you as a person who is invested in that community, who has an interest for the betterment of that community. You know, there's been a move going on for the last couple of years, shop local, buy local. And people tend to return the favor when you shop with them locally. They're going to come shop with you. And by becoming active with the Chamber of Commerce and the city government, you can prove to be that person. Brand yourself as that person. One of the things that we did is after I bought the shop, I immediately called the city government and the chamber, and I said, you know, I'm here. If you ever have a meeting, a function, whatever the need may be, I would love to put a podium piece for you on stage. Or, you know, if you're having a small luncheon, I'd love to do something on your tables for you. And I know some of you are thinking probably the same thing my grandmother said in the beginning. She said, "Son, if you're going to stay in business, you can't give away the shop." But my thoughts on that are, if I put a retail value of $100 into a podium piece, I may have $33 to $35 in that. But my work will be setting in front of 200 to 250 people. And the best form of advertisement, second to word of mouth, is my product. And if my product is sitting in front of them, that is an advertisement. And when I do place something there, I make sure it's unique and it's different, because not only am I branding me, my shop, my business as someone vested in that community, but at the same time I'm branding that talent and I'm branding that personal brand. The local schools. We get involved with the schools, and some of you, this may be out of scope for you and you can't do it. Some of you who are in a small town, this may be something you want to think about. For the last 6 years, on the first day of school, we place a single rosebud vase on the desk of every teacher in our school system. We have about 621. And we put a card on there that says, "Best wishes on a new year. Thanks for all you do." Did you hear that? There's my other tagline. Thanks for all you do. Randy and staff at Dolores' Florist. The first year that we did that, the weeks that followed, each school system in our county, which is 11 schools, 12 I think, 12, they each one called and said how much they appreciated it, and they would like to transfer their business to my shop and wanted to set up an account with my business. And from that, I've got weddings, I've got funeral tributes. People come in and would purchase something and they'd say, "I want to let you know how much I appreciate that rose you send every year, and I'm here because of that." That is one of the most effective ways of branding you can have, because you're branding on so many levels with those people. And like I said, some of you have larger school systems than that, and it may not be feasible, but it's a thought to think of, getting involved in your community. Another way to get your brand recognized would be to partner with other companies and other civic groups. You know, these companies, think of companies who already have a brand established, such as FTD. We said earlier, their logo is one of the most recognized logo in the world, and it stands for sending flowers and sending the best. That is two things you would want to incorporate in your brand. Send flowers, send the best. Why not partner with that logo, and everything that logo stands for transcends onto your logo? Does that make sense? Vera Wang partnered with FTD. FTD has partnered with some of its florists to say, hey, this florist is a Vera Wang wedding shop. Vera Wang's name and her brand is everywhere. All the stars, all the wedding shows, her name is out there. And everything her brand stands for could enhance your brand. Chain restaurants. You know, some of those that are in your local area, partner up with them, work out something with gift cards, and everything that people are known, that chain restaurant is known for, can transcend onto you, as well as other businesses in town. There is a strong downtown district here in Douglas, and there are several businesses that have been in business several years. Some it's been 70, I think there's one that's 90. The funeral home is 100. Our shop is under the current name 45. And there's a campaign going on about shopping with local businesses that have stood the test of time. It's all a marketing thing. And every one of those businesses that have stood the test of time, tried and true, they're there for a reason. And if you partner with them, everything that they stand for will also affect you. So think about that. Another way to get your brand recognized would be through special promotions. And there again, being creative. FTD, you see on the slide, FTD Good Neighbor Day. This is an awesome, awesome program. Not because we're sitting here talking on FTD's time, but I can honestly tell you, we partnered with the FTD Good Neighbor Day in the beginning, and people come out in droves. And we got cards and emails and people walking in phone calls, people crying. It establishes you as someone who values humankind and values your community. People eat that up. Besides the fact that it's a good thing to do, but from a marketing standpoint, people eat that up. And that's a wonderful event to partner yourself with. A wedding contest. Here's an example of something that has really, really worked for us. When I bought the shop for my grandmother, she had got out of the wedding business. She was up in age and didn't have the staff to accommodate. And she made this statement, I could care less if I ever do another wedding. So my shop was not known for weddings. And I began to think, you know, how in the world am I going to change that? What am I going to do to get my name out there in that market? So we did a dream wedding giveaway. And we had a contest. And that year we booked 8 weddings, went from 0 to 8. The next year we did it, we went up to, I think, 15 or 16. And by the 3rd year, we were well on our way. And we did it for about 6 years. And we haven't done the contest, I think, for the last 2-3 years. But last year we did 58 weddings. And to some of you that may sound like a little petty number, but for a small town florist, 58 weddings in 1 year, that's a heck of a deal. And now, people, when they think about getting married, they come to us. We're known as the wedding shop. So we took that promotion, and through that promotion, it branded this shop in that particular area of our industry. Wonderful, wonderful tool. And some of you, just like my grandmother, said I was giving away the shop. But you have to look at it, folks. Look at that as an investment and advertisement, and trust me, you can write it off on your taxes. I would recommend, if you do the wedding contest, have control. Set limits so you don't break the bank. And we talked about the teacher appreciation, where we send the teachers their flowers. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing, and we still continue that to this day. Now that we've figured out how we want to get our brand recognized, what resources and tools are out there to help us achieve all this? And one way that's been beneficial to me is through free advertising. You know, back a few years ago when the economy took a downward turn, you saw all over the news where people were starting to barter for services and trade out for this and for that. And I picked up the phone because one of the newspapers here in town is a customer of mine. And I called them up and said, hey, would you be interested in doing trade out? And they're like, sure, why not? It made sense. And so we trade retail dollar for retail dollar. And normally my cost in a retail dollar is around 33 to 35 cents on the dollar, which I think is pretty darn good. So from there, I went and I called the radio stations up, and I'm like, hey, would you be interested in doing trade out? And none of them were customers of mine. And through that, now I have trade out with 4 radio stations, a newspaper, and believe it or not, I even trade out my orthodontist and my optometrist for my glasses. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And not only am I doing trade out, but now I have the radio station's business who I didn't have before. And there are times throughout the year they'll say, I know we do trade out, but I want to order several things, and it may be a lot, and if you don't want to do trade out on that, I understand. I'm willing to pay. And I just tell them, no, we'll handle it. If you will, just put this back in reserve, and when a major holiday comes, we'll just beef up our advertisement. But these free advertising tools keeps me out on the airwaves and in print in front of my consumers, because advertising is very expensive. And we all know our profit margin in a retail florist is not that large. So there's not a lot of money there for advertising. However, we have to be creative and use those tools. What's the worst case scenario? What? They tell you no? They're not interested? So what? You haven't lost anything, but you have everything to gain if they say they will, because you have that opportunity to get yourself out there. Now, a little side note when it comes to print and radio, from experience, for radio and print to be effective, you have to be consistent and you have to be on there. You can't run an ad for 3 or 4 days and drop it and then expect it to pay off for you. You have to be consistent. Same thing with the print. Another tool that's probably one of the most popular out there right now is social media. And it's the driving force in our market. I tell you, it's just blowing my mind every day how technology is dictating our industry. You've got Facebook, you've got Pinterest, Twitter, YouTube, blogs, and there's more coming every day. This is something that we all need to be investing time in. And I know, I hear it all the time, how Facebooking and social media campaigns are time consuming. But someone shared with me, and you know, I'm not tech savvy, that's why I have someone handle this for me, but they shared with me, but you know what, Randy, you can spend a little bit of time, an hour or so, and sit down and plan out this schedule of campaigns, and you can go on there and schedule them to post at certain times so that you're not sitting at a computer every day. And that was a wonderful, wonderful thing for us, because being a small shop, limited staffing, it's a chore to pull someone off the design, from the design table to a computer. So the feature of being able to create those schedules is wonderful. Another option that we're hearing out there is there's companies or individuals who work from home.
Well, it looks like we had a little technical difficulty there. Hang on, guys, and we'll get Randy back as quick as we can here. We're almost done.
Those have followed our page, our shop's page, or what have you, know we struggle all the time to keep this up. But I'm wanting to drive home how important this is, and this is something we have to work on ourselves. Pinterest has come fast and furious to the forefront in the wedding business. 99.9% of my wedding consultations now are done through Pinterest. They will send me those Pinterest pages, and I'm finding more and more brides are wanting to conduct consultations via email. You know, I'm a little old school when it comes to that, so I'm having to adjust. So if you're not involved in social media, I encourage you to do so. It's a wonderful tool, and in most cases it's free. Absolutely. And if you don't have a younger staff member in your shop, I encourage you to do so. The last resource and tool is probably the most important resource and tool you could ever have, and that's your talent. Showcase your talent every day. You heard me say that we're not selling flowers, we're selling customer service and talent. You should be monitoring every piece of product, design, flower, whatever that goes out of your shop should be showing and speaking your talent. We talked about earlier giving it a voice. Your talent should have a voice. If you're sending out the same thing that they can get down the street, why should they come to you? And your talent is the best tool and resource you could ever have. And we talked about donating to community events. This is another way to put your work out there. You have to put aside the fact, okay, I just gave away $20 worth of flowers. I just invested $20 worth of flowers. Keep a running tab of that. At the end of the year, your accountant will tell you you can take it off as advertisement. So many times we get caught up and we're busy. We're all fast-paced and we're just trying to get that order out the door and we're not paying close attention to our talent. Just like I talked about earlier, where 20% of my business was plants. And when we go to the funeral home, there's this sea of plants, and every plant is in the same kind of container, has the same type of ribbon on it. We changed it up. We use a different container. We use birch branches, curly willow. We will place angel vine around the brim of the pot at the base of the plant. We use different textured ribbons, burlap, something unexpected, so that when they walk into that funeral home and they see all those plants sitting there, mine are going to stick out and stand up. That's using your talent as a resource and a tool. Another thing you can do in the community is start a consumer awareness campaign in your area. Pick it once a month, once a quarter, however you want to do it. Pick out high traffic areas in your city, in your town, like a teller's desk at a bank, a restaurant, and take them an arrangement and say, I would like to donate this arrangement to you if I can place it here with my card. And place flowers around town. You get people talking, the buzz going. That's using your talent as a resource and a tool. But remember, when you do that, make it count. Use unique flowers. Don't use the same run-of-the-mill they're used to seeing. We're in South Georgia. We're in the middle of South Georgia. We're about probably 88 to 90 miles from the coast. But when people around here see tropical flowers, they go crazy because we don't use them every day. That would be the type of flower I would want to put out in the community. Showcase some kind of technique, some kind of flower. 9 times out of 10, when we do that, we get orders, phone calls. Hey, I just saw an arrangement down at so-and-so. I want to order that. That's a perfect example of using your talent as a resource and a tool. So we're going to recap here on marketing your brand, growing your business. And I hope you've learned something today or sparked some ideas for you. But we need to remember we have to know our market. When I bought my grandmother's shop, I came in and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to change things up. I'm going to educate this community. Look at me. And I tried this and I tried that. Some things worked, some things didn't. And I tell this all the time, and it's a funny little story. My grandmother, we were located in an old bungalow-style house downtown, and she would go out every morning and she would put her sympathy silk pots and baskets out on the front porch, and that used to just get under my skin. So when I bought the shop, I said, no more. There will be no more baskets out on the front steps. We're not doing that. I took it, brought it inside, put it down the hall, turned the light off. And I despised them. And for 3 to 4 years, that's where they were. But you know what? That was one area of my market I could not change. My market wanted those sympathy tributes. They demanded those sympathy tributes. My competitors down the street were selling them hand over fist. They were showing up everywhere at the funeral home. And you know what? I had to accept that was the need in my market, and I changed. And you know what? We sell them all day long, every day. So you have to know your market and know what it needs. It may not be what you want it to be, but it's where you need to be in that market. You need to know that branding is more than just the name on the outside of your building or your van. It's your customer service. It's your talent, and it's you as an individual. And they all must be consistent and coherent to one another, so that if they see you at the counter, or they see your staff member at the counter, they see you out in the community, they see your van driving down the street, it all meshes and makes sense. And we need to work really hard to get our brand recognized, you know, through our talents, through free advertisement, bartering with these companies, using social media, Facebook, Pinterest, getting that young staff member in there, the Gen Ys, the millenniums, and really cultivating and working that social media, because like we said earlier, most of them are free. And using the resources to get it done. And don't forget that your talent is a resource. Make sure that every day, everything that you send out of your shop has a voice and is consistent, and it speaks volumes about your brand. I hope you've enjoyed it. And like I said earlier, I don't proclaim to be the authority on this, but this information has proved very crucial to me in my business, and I hope this helps you. My email is on the screen. If you need anything, I'm available. And again, I'd like to thank you for joining us today, spending time out of your busy schedule to support education. Continue on with your education journey. Education is the key to our survival. And I'd like to thank Janet and FTD for an opportunity to share with you today some of my passions. Janet, I'll turn it over to you.
Randy, thank you so much for sharing a lot of really great information with us today. Of course, as we are now open for questions, if you have a question, simply type it in the question box on the upper right side of your screen, and we'll take the questions in the order that they are received. We do have a question from Kristen, and she wants to know, what has been your most successful area of branding?
Probably our talent, because when I purchased the shop, at that time there were 8 other shops in our town, and for our small town that was a lot. But everyone's work was very consistent and looked just like the next shop. And it wasn't until later I found out, at some point in time, everyone at all these other shops had worked for one another or whatever, and so their work all looked the same. And so as soon as we started putting out work that was different, literally the phone would ring and say, I don't know what you call it, but I want one of those unusual sprays. And for like a year, that's what they were called. I need to order an unusual spray. So I'd have to say that probably our most effective one would be our talent branding.
Great. Penny wants to know, what are your thoughts on uniforms as a part of branding?
Absolutely. You know, we talked about being consistent and having a voice and having a message, and that everything is coherent. And I think by having a uniform shirt, a dress code of some sorts, just reinforces all that. So I think it would be a very wonderful thing.
All right. Again, if you have a question, just simply type it in the question box on the upper right side of your screen, and we'll take the questions as they come in. We have a question from Bradley. He said, Randy, as a new shop in town, how would you suggest marketing to the funeral homes?
That's a good question. I don't know how your situation is there in your area. For us, we're still a small town, and the line of communication is still very much open between us and our funeral home. But I do know from our state association, a lot of our members are having issues with that because the sympathy market is becoming very competitive. I would suggest to you, if you don't have that open line of communication with your funeral home, I would make an appointment, sit down with them, open that line of communication up, and be willing to help in any way. Sometimes they may have an issue with your design. You need to offer to handle that for them. You need to be accommodating and understanding of their needs, because just like we don't want them coming in to dictate, you know, to our industry, we don't need to step on their toes. But I would encourage you to go and open the line of communication, and hopefully that will get your foot in the door.
Great. We've got a question from Parvana. She said, what did you do for your wedding contest?
Well, the first year we started out, I told you we did trade out with radio and print, so we did this mass marketing on the radio and newspaper, and for 4 weeks we accepted a 300-word or less essay. Could be from the couple, could be from someone else nominating them, just stating what a dream wedding would mean to them and a little backstory on how they met or anything special. And then once the cutoff date happened, we sent those out of town to a fellow colleague of mine, and I let that shop owner pick my winner. And I did instruct them that I'm not looking for a savvy sob story. I'm looking for something real genuine, and we announced a winner, and then everyone who entered the contest, if they booked their wedding with us, received a $250 wedding voucher towards their wedding. And it was huge. It really put us on the map, to say, in the wedding market in our area, because we went from 0 to last year 58 weddings, so it's paid off.
Great. Penny wants to know, did you update your grandmother's existing logo or create a whole new one when you bought the shop?
Well, immediately when I bought the shop, things remained the same for a little while because, I did not, out of respect for my grandmother, we didn't want to do anything drastic. Actually, next month will be 10 years, and over the years, we have updated the logo, our stationery, give it a little more modern, youthful feel. But it was one of those things, I had to know my customers because my grandmother had a good customer base, but I had to be mindful not to make anything real drastic. So with the logo, we took our time on that.
All right, we've got a question from Bob. Do all elements of your branding strategy integrate with one another?
Pretty much. My philosophy in business is everything goes hand in hand. I'm a firm believer in my personal life. You see me in the work setting, you see me out in the community, you see me on the couch at home, I'm pretty much the same. What you see is what you get. And I try to bring that practice into my business. And I think if you're consistent across the board, they all will mesh. And one will transcend into the other, and it will all make sense.
All right.
It's all about being consistent.
Sonia wants to know what you would suggest for home-based florists.
Well, you're gonna, for a home-based florist, first of all, the challenge you have is for people to find you. If you're not in a high-traffic area, the visibility is working against you. So you're going to have to probably work harder than, say, a retail florist such as myself who's on the main street that I have hundreds of people pass in front of my shop every day. It's a little easier for me. So for you, you're going to have to work harder, and I would seek out those companies that would want to partner with you to do some type of bartering or trade out, because it would be, like we said, marketing, advertisement can be expensive. I would just really start heavy with the marketing through social medias and through some local outlets there.
All right, well, it looks like we are out of questions for today. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. If you missed a portion of this webinar or would like to listen to it again, a replay will be available at FTD University Online later this week. Webinar materials are always available at ftdi.com. Simply click on the FTD University logo on the home page and then click through to the webinar series page. As always, we will be sending you a survey to gather your feedback on today's webinar. We'd ask that you would please take a minute to complete this very brief survey that will help improve future webinars and other education programs for you. The next FTD webinar is scheduled for Tuesday, May 21st FTD Education Consultant, Tina Coker, AIFD, will walk you through the how-to, when-to, what-to, and who-to of email marketing. Registration is already available at ftdi.com, so be sure to register as soon as possible to reserve your spot. Again, thank you, Randy, so much for sharing the importance of branding and how to do it. And this concludes FTD's webinar, Market Your Brand, Grow Your Business. Thank you, everybody.